This next beetle is one that's so common I'm sure everybody's seen it. If you have roses or any kind of flowers in your garden that attracts them, they'll drive you crazy. It's the plain old Japanese beetle. Years ago, this used to be just a real problem with gardeners. Occasionally we have outbursts of these things all over the East Coast, and they can be a problem. But when they occur around trout streams, you know, that's a blessing, because they'll fall in the stream, and I have yet to see a trout that wouldn't eat a Japanese beetle. Vince Marinaro first started tying these things, and he did it years ago. It was quite different from what I'm going to show you how to do today. This Japanese beetle is, again, tied mostly with synthetics. So let's do this and see what happens. This is tied on either a number 10 or a number 12 standard dry fly hook. Again, I would recommend the Team Co. 100s. You can use black thread, you can use olive thread. It really doesn't seem to make much difference. First thing I'm going to do, as usual, is just to attach the thread to the shank of the hook and bring it all the way back to the rear. Again, the reason behind that is the material I'm going to use for the back of this beetle is just a little on the slick side. I want to make sure I've got a good thread base to hold it down. We bring it all the way back to the bend of the hook, then bring the thread forward. Stop about 2/3 of the way up the shank of the hook. The material that I'm going to use on the back is what's commonly referred to as Swiss straw. It used to be called raffia, and I think probably some fly fishing catalogs still refer to it as raffia, but Swiss straw is more commonly seen in fly fishing catalogs. The color I use is copper. It's just perfect for these Japanese beetles. So I'm going to cut a piece of that. I'm going to tie that in right on top of the shank of the hook. Just take a little piece of this, lay it right down on the shank of the hook, tie it down, all the way to the rear. Now we're going to do the same thing we did with that firefly. I'm going to tie in a foam body. Now when I first started tying this fly, I used an olive colored foam, but we can't get that anymore. I don't know what the problem is, but you can use a dark green or a black foam and it works just fine. Again, just as with the firefly, I'm going to use this 1/8 inch thick black foam. Again, I'm just going to cut a strip out of it. The strip in this case is a little bit wider than the one I used for the firefly because the Japanese beetle has got a fat little body to it. It's a little short, stubby beetle, and you've got to kind of prepare your materials, you know, to match the size of the fly. I'm going to take this foam, and when you use a piece of foam this big, to tie it in, I usually just cut the end to a point. That's going to give me a neat tie-in. I'll just lay that right down on this hook shank, start to tie that down. We'll run it back a little bit further, tie it down all the way to the rear. And once that's tied down, bring your thread forward a little bit. Again, I'm going to use peacock herl for the underbody because it's just such great material. Take 3 or 4 strands of peacock herl. I know I'm being repetitive here, but that's how you learn. Trim the tips and tie the herl in by the tips. Again, remember when you wrap it, you want that herl to fuzz out and really look good. Tie that herl in right up to about this point here. Stop right there. I'm not going to bring that thread all the way to the eye of the hook. I'm going to stop it well back from the eye of the hook. Then we wrap our herl body. Just wrap that forward about 2/3 of the way up the hook shank and then tie it down. A couple of 3 good thread wraps, trim away the excess. Again, I'm just going to fold this foam forward. Do not pull or stretch this foam. You don't want to do that. Just flip the foam forward, hold it in place, put your thumb on top, and tie it down. Once you got a couple of good thread wraps on it, you put a little more pressure, then trim the front portion. Now I'm going to trim this fairly close to where that was tied down. Then take the thread and wrap all that foam down. Kind of make it neat. Taper that front. Next step is to tie in the wing. Again, for the wing, I'm going to use that same chronic material that I used for the firefly and for the disco beetle. Just take a piece of that, lay it right down on the hook shank. Don't make these wings too long. You don't want these too long. The fly will be totally out of balance. Hold it down with your thumb and tie it off. And you can trim away that forward piece right there. And you notice I save all of this stuff that I trim because I'll just use it until I run out of it, then I'll do some more. Then tie that wing all the way down to the front of the body. Now we can separate it. Again, using your scissors or a needle or whatever's handy, just separate that material into two pieces, two sections, and then pull those little sections over on either side of the body. Doesn't have to be exactly even. Now we've got the wings separated. Just as you did with the firefly, take this back material, pull it forward over the top of the fly. Keep those wings separated, and once you've got it in position, tie it down. Okay. Then I'm going to trim this with straw, kind of at an angle. Wrap the thread up to the eye of the hook. If you get a little material up there, you can trim it off, kind of get it out of the way. Really won't bother anything in the long run, but it just makes it look a little bit neater. And then to make the head on this fly, I just use a little bit more peacock herl. A couple of strands really is all you need, and I've got some stuff here that was cut off another fly. I'm just going to take 2 strands of this peacock herl. Again, tie it in at the tips, right up here in the front. And then wrap it forward. Only takes 2 or 3 turns. Once you get right behind the eye of the hook, tie it off. And then you can go ahead and finish the head. Get rid of the thread. Kind of flare the wings out a little bit. As I say, the body on this, black foam will work fine. If you have dark green foam, as long as it's in this 1/8 inch thickness, that's just going to work great. Black or dark green, if you can find olive, get it, because there's probably not going to be any more. When I'm fishing a trout stream, I always look for multiflora rose, wild grapevines, anything that Japanese beetles might be attracted to, because when they are out in force, they are everywhere. And one of the greatest pleasures is to have somebody stand upstream from you, get a handful of Japanese beetles, throw them in, locate a big trout, then sneak up on it and make a cast with one of these little guys and whack it. So when the Japanese beetles are out, this pattern is just hot. I've caught a lot of fish even when they weren't out, so don't discount it. It can produce at any time and in any stream.